Amritsar, Punjab, 1699. Guru Gobind Singh stands before 80,000 people at the Baisakhi gathering and asks a question no religious leader had ever asked in public before. He asks who among them is willing to give their life, not metaphorically, actually willing to walk into a tent and die. 5 men step forward: a Jat farmer, a barber, a water carrier, a tailor, a washerman. 5 men from 5 different castes, 5 positions on a hierarchy that had organized South Asian society for 3,000 years. He initiates all 5 as equals, same name, same faith, same blood, the Khalsa is born. It was the most radical social declaration made anywhere on earth that century. For 525 years, this has been one of the most celebrated facts in religious history. Sikhism abolished caste. Scholars cite it. Textbooks confirm it. The community itself holds it as foundational truth. And it is true, spiritually, theologically, in every principle of the Guru Granth Sahib. That part is not in question. Here is what is in question. Between 2006 and 2019, genetic studies map the Y chromosome profiles of Punjab Sikh communities. The kind of mapping that doesn't read faith, doesn't read text, doesn't read intention. It reads the chemical sequence in a cell. And what it found was this. Jat Sikhs carry a genetic marker called R1AZ93 at a frequency of 55 to 65%, a marker that traces back to the Bronze Age steppe of Central Asia, a population that entered South Asia approximately 3,500 years ago. Mazhabi Sikhs, the Dalit Sikh community, carry a different marker, haplogroup HM69, one of the oldest genetic signatures in all of South Asia, predating agriculture, predating the Indus Valley Civilization, predating any migration from anywhere. On a genetic ancestry plot, these two communities do not cluster together. They sit in different regions of the subcontinent. Stay with me, because this next part is the reason this video exists. The 2 men sitting in the same Gurdwara, reading the same scripture, bowing before the same Granth. Their Y chromosomes have been diverging for approximately 3,500 years. Sikhism did not create one people. It declared one people. Those are not the same thing. And the genome, which cannot read scripture, cannot hear prayer, has no theology, recorded only what happened in the bodies across the millennia before the declaration was ever made. In 2009, a Sikh spiritual leader was murdered at a Gurdwara in Vienna, Austria. The killing was caste-related. Riots followed across Punjab. The 2 crowds photographed, the protesters and the opposing groups, were noted by journalists who covered them as looking like people from different regions of the subcontinent entirely. They were. Genetically, they were. The genome records what the faith abolished. What nobody has named is the variable that could tell us whether that gulf is permanent or closing. That variable, and what it would have proven, is what this episode is about. If you've ever actually wondered where you come from, not the family story, but the real biological answer, subscribe. Because what comes next goes deeper than most people are prepared to go. Before we continue, I want to know something. Drop it in the comments. Where is your family from in Punjab? Are you descended from a Jat family, a Khatri family, a lower caste community, or somewhere different? Your answer is going to matter as this episode unfolds. Before the declaration, before Nanak, before Gobind Singh, before any guru, there were women. A woman is buried in Punjab approximately 40,000 years ago. We don't know her name. We don't know what she looked like. We know she carried a mitochondrial haplogroup, a genetic signature passed only through the maternal line, designated M3. We know this because the woman sitting in the Gurdwara Langar in Ludhiana today, distributing food to every person who walks through the door regardless of caste, carries it too. In an unbroken maternal line across 600 generations, nobody lost it. Here's where it gets strange. Researchers studying the maternal DNA of Punjabi Khatri and Jat Sikh women, including a landmark 2022 study from Punjab University and the Birbal Sahni Institute of Paleosciences in Lucknow, found that maternal lineages are dominated by macrohaplogroup M and its subclades, with origins 40,000 to 60,000 years ago. Unlike the paternal Y chromosomes, which carry the Bronze Age steppe signal at high frequency, the maternal lines show almost no steppe input. West Eurasian maternal lineages appear at only 3 to 7% in Khatri and Jat Sikh women. That team, led by J.S. Sehrawat and Gaineshwar Chobe, working alongside Kumarasamy Thangaraj at the Cheezer Center for Cellular and Molecular Biology and Niraj Rai at the Birbal Sahni Institute, weren't looking for this asymmetry. They found it in the bones. Every conqueror who entered Punjab came from the north: Alexander, the Kushans, the Sakas, the Huns, the Mughals. Every single one of them left a genetic mark on the fathers. Not one of them moved the mothers. Think about what that means. The steppe migration that gave Jat Sikh men their R1AZ93 lineage was, by every genomic measure, male-biased. Men arrived. The women were already there, and what this means, what nobody talks about when they talk about Punjabi identity, is that the genetic signal these communities have historically organized themselves around, the paternal lineage, the clan, the Gat, is precisely the imported layer, the local layer, the 40,000-year layer, that runs through the mothers. In 2014, 157 years after the Sepoy Mutiny of 1857, researchers excavated an abandoned well in Ajnala, Punjab, and pulled out 50 sets of human remains. They extracted mitochondrial DNA. The haplogroup distribution rejected local Punjab ancestry. The bodies were from east of the region, but the specific mtDNA subclades they carried were the same ancient South Asian branches found in modern Punjabi women today. The ground of Punjab holds everyone who passed through it. The women held what the ground could not. If the maternal lines are ancient and unbroken, the same in Jat Sikh women and Mazhabi Sikh women, then the genetic divergence between these two communities is entirely a paternal story, a story of men arriving, separating, stratifying. And that story begins not in 1469, not in 2000 BCE, but in a catastrophe so old it predates agriculture. What happened to the fathers is what this episode is really about. The name that matters, the one the history of Punjab never recorded, is not a person's name. It is a place. Sintishta, Central Asia, approximately 2100 BCE. A warrior is buried in a kurgan grave on the steppe, chariot wheels beside his skeleton. Horse bones arranged with deliberate ceremony. His Y chromosome R1AZ93. His descendants will move south through the Bactria Margiana archaeological complex, through what is now Afghanistan, and into the Punjab corridor. They will arrive speaking a language no existing population in South Asia understands. Within 400 years, that language becomes Sanskrit. In 2019, Vagesh Narasimhan, then at Harvard Medical School, together with David Reich, Nick Patterson, and colleagues at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology in Germany, published the largest ancient DNA study ever conducted in South and Central Asia, 523 ancient individuals, covering the Eurasian steppe, eastern Iran, the Iron Age Swat Valley of Pakistan. Their finding, steppe pastoralist ancestry arrived in South Asia after the decline of the Indus Valley Civilization between approximately 2000 and 1500 BCE. In northwest India and Pakistan, the Punjab corridor, this ancestry reached its highest concentration anywhere on the subcontinent. Modern Jat Sikhs carry 25 to 35% steppe pastoralist ancestry, the highest frequency of any major South Asian community. And yet, the data said something the narrative did not predict. The population that received the highest concentration of Bronze Age steppe ancestry in all of South Asia is not the one that built the Vedic texts. It is the one that built the Khalsa. Punjab was not a destination for the steppe migration. It was a corridor. The men who carried R1AZ93 into South Asia did not stop in Punjab to build a civilization. They passed through it. The population that remained, the one that accumulated the highest steppe frequency on the subcontinent, was for fine 500 years after that migration, politically marginal. The genetic inheritance of conquerors passed to the people those conquerors did not consider significant enough to write about. The Jat community, from which the majority of Sikh warriors, farmers, and saints descend, appears in no Sanskrit text as a noble lineage. The earliest references describe them as pastoral nomads, herdsmen, outside the Vedic Varna system. The people with the most steppe ancestry in South Asia were classified by the very civilization that steppe ancestry helped build outside its hierarchy. The Bronze Age steppe migration created the Indo-Aryan caste order. The population that absorbed the most steppe DNA was placed at its margins. 5,000 years later, that population founded a religion that declared the hierarchy invalid. The genome and the theology are running parallel tracks toward the same destination, one 3,500 years behind the other. The Bronze Age fault line between the population that came from the steppe and the population that was already here did not close when the migrations ended. It calcified, it became caste. And in Punjab specifically, that fault line runs directly through the middle of the Sikh community. The same genetic boundary that separates Jat Sikhs from Mazhabi Sikhs today is the boundary between the steppe arrival and the pre-steppe indigenous population, a division that ended 3,500 years ago and never quite stopped. Before the war, before the steppe, there was a civilization so complete, so urban, so organized, that it had no use for war. Rakhigarhi, Haryana, 2014. Archaeologist Vasant Shinde's team from Deccan College Postgraduate and Research Institute in Pune is excavating a cemetery dated to 2500 BCE, the mature phase of the Indus Valley Civilization, which was at that moment the largest urban society on Earth. They pull genetic material from 61 skeletal samples. One, a woman, yields authentic ancient DNA. The team, working with Vagesh Narasimhan and David Reich at Harvard Medical School and Niraj Rai at the Birbal Sahni Institute in Lucknow, makes over 100 separate sequencing attempts. They pool all the datasets together. It is enough. The woman's genome, published in the journal Cell in September 2019, shows Iranian farmer-related ancestry and a deep South Asian hunter-gatherer signal. She carries zero-step pastoralist ancestry, 0. She lived at the height of a city of 40,000 people, with sophisticated drainage systems, standardized weights and measures, and a written script nobody alive has decoded, and her genome contains no trace of the population that would, within 600 years of her death, transform everything in this region forever. This discovery was made in an excavation that began in 2014. The paper sat for years. Almost nobody outside the specialist field talked about it. Until now. She was alive when the Great Pyramid of Giza was under construction, and the primary genetic layer she represents, what geneticists call the IVC, Klein, the Indus Valley Ancestry, still constitutes the largest single component of every Punjabi Sikh genome alive today, regardless of caste. Jat Sikhs carry approximately 65% IVC-related ancestry. Mazhabi Sikhs carry a higher proportion. The steppe ancestry that defines the Jat paternal line is the recent arrival. The Rocky Garhi woman is everyone's ancestor, not metaphorically. Genetically, she has no name. The civilization she represented has no deciphered script. The largest component of Punjabi Sikh identity is a civilization that cannot yet speak for itself. Every other ancestral layer, the steppe, the Iranian farmer, the ancient South Asian hunter-gatherer, at least has a name. This one is still being decoded. The haplogroup that marks the IVC male line, LM20, appears across the Sikh community on both sides of the caste divide. Jat Sikhs carry it. Khatri Sikhs carry it. Mazhabi Sikhs carry it. It is the one genetic thread that crosses the community's deepest internal boundary. It comes from a civilization with no surviving name we can confidently pronounce. What LM20 was called by the people who carried it, what god they prayed to, what language they spoke, is the question the genome raises and cannot answer. Actually, hold on. In our last episode, we followed R1AZ93 as it reshaped Europe through the corded ware expansion. In this segment, we're watching the exact same Bronze Age signal arrive in Punjab and stratify into the caste hierarchy that Guru Nanak would spend his life trying to dismantle. Did you watch that episode? And here's what I want to know. Do you think the steppe migration created caste, or only made it heritable? Drop it in the comments, because your answer connects to something I'm about to say that changes the whole picture. This isn't just ancient history. This is in your DNA right now. Here's a question the genome answers with uncomfortable precision. 2 women. One the daughter of a Jat Sikh landowner in Ludhiana. One the daughter of a Mazhabi Sikh sanitation worker in the same city. They are both mothers. Their mitochondrial DNA, the genetic record that passes through the maternal line, is statistically indistinguishable. If either of them had sons, those sons would tell completely different stories. Comparative maternal DNA studies of Punjabi Sikh communities confirm it. Macrohaplogroup M and its subclades dominate across caste lines, with no statistically significant difference between Jat Sikh and Mazhabi Sikh. Women in the ancient South Asian maternal haplogroups. West Eurasian maternal input stays uniformly low, 3 to 7%, across both communities. The paternal divergence, meanwhile, is dramatic. Jat Sikh Y chromosomes carry R1AZ93 at 55 to 65%. Mazhabi Sikh Y chromosomes carry HM69 at 25 to 32%. The ancient South Asian hunter-gatherer lineage that was in this land before any recorded migration arrived. What they found next changed everything about how this social history looks. This means something precise and uncomfortable. The hierarchy that divided Punjab's population was imported. It did not arise from the women of Punjab. It arrived with men, specifically with a Y chromosome subclade that originated on the Eurasian steppe 3, 500 years ago. The paternal genetic signal that correlates with upper caste Punjabi status, R1AZ93, arrived approximately 3,500 years ago. The paternal signal that correlates with lower caste status, HM69, was here first. The social hierarchy runs precisely backwards from the chronological sequence. The people who arrived later have higher status. The people who were here first have lower status. The genome does not make a moral argument about this. It records it. A study of social stratification in the Sikh population of Punjab, compiled across multiple Punjabi institutions and published in Human Biology. Research found that genetic distance trees demonstrated, in the researchers' own words, little or no genetic affinities between Sikh scheduled caste and Jat Sikh populations. The people declaring themselves one faith across one table, the biochemical record disagreed. There is no way to soften the geometry of this. The people with the oldest presence in Punjab were assigned the lowest social position. The people with the most recent arrival were assigned the highest. The faith that declared this arrangement invalid was founded and led through its 10 gurus by members of the caste that arrived later. This is not an indictment, it is a fact. The genome records what it records. For 500 years, the story of Sikh genetic identity has been organized around the paternal lineage, the steppe-descended R1A signal that marks the Jat warrior tradition. Here is the inversion. The paternal line is the recent layer, the maternal line is the ancient one, and the maternal line doesn't distinguish between a Jat and a Mazhabi, which means the division that made Punjab's caste hierarchy was not written into the people of Punjab, it was written onto them, and one chromosome, shared by both communities' mothers, has been quietly refusing to acknowledge it for 60,000 years. The refusal to acknowledge it was not only in the chromosomes. Let me make the strongest possible case for Sikh genetic unity, right now, before I examine its evidence. The Sikh community shares the highest concentrations of Indus Valley ancestry in South Asia, 65% or more across caste lines. The Rakhi Garhi woman is everyone's ancestor. The LM20 haplogroup crosses every internal Sikh boundary. The maternal lines are indistinguishable. By every measure of deep ancestry, the ancestry that goes back before cities, before agriculture, before any recorded migration, the people in the Gurdwara share more genetic heritage with each other than with almost any population outside Punjab. That is not opinion, that is data. Population genetic study of 5 Northwest Punjabi endogamous groups, Jat Sikh, Mazhabi Sikh, Brahmin, Ramdasia, and Muslim, conducted by researchers at Guru Nanak Dev University in Amritsar and published in a peer-reviewed genetics journal, confirmed that despite measurable differentiation between communities, all 5 groups share the same foundational South Asian ancestry architecture. On a global genetic map, they cluster together. The unity argument is real. It has evidence. Everything I just told you? Hold on to it, because it's about to mean something completely different. The same study, from the same institution, using the same data, reported its phylogenetic analysis. The finding: Jat Sikhs are genetically closest among all Punjabi communities to Brahmins, not to Mazhabi Sikhs, not to other Sikh communities, to the priestly caste that Sikhism was explicitly founded in opposition to. The two groups whose religious identity is defined by theological contrast, the Sikh warrior farmer and the Brahmin priest, share more Y chromosome ancestry than either shares with the Dalit Sikh community that prays in the same building under the same roof, reading the same text. The genetic argument for Sikh unity, pushed to its logical conclusion, becomes the genetic argument for the caste hierarchy. The DNA that unites Jat Sikhs most strongly does not cross the Gurdwara's internal social boundary. It crosses the boundary between Sikhism and Hinduism's most elevated caste. The genome has no theology. It does not know that Guru Nanak rejected the Brahmin. It only records who arrived together. And this is where the founding of Sikhism becomes genomically interesting. Guru Nanak was born in 1469 CE at Rai Boi Ki Talwandi, present-day Nankana Sahib in Pakistan. He was a Bedi Khatri, a community of merchants and administrators carrying elevated J2 lineages associated with Neolithic Iranian farmer ancestry alongside R1A at 30 to 40% frequency. Studies describe the Khatri genetic profile as a distinct mercantile cluster with higher West Eurasian input than the general Punjabi average. The founder of the faith that declared all castes equal was genetically positioned inside one of the most admixed, West Eurasian-influenced communities in Punjab. His revolt was not against outsiders. It was against a hierarchy he was born inside. The genetic case for Sikh unity is real. The genetic case against Sikh unity is also real. Both are simultaneously true. The question of which truth to act on was not answered by the genome. It was answered in 1469 by a Khatri man from a village whose name translates as the place of Nanak's grandfather. The community Sikhism defined itself against, the Brahmins of Punjab, and the community that became the Marshal. Backbone of the faith, the Jat farmers, are, by paternal genetics, closer to each other than either is to the Dalit Sikhs who clean the Gurdwara floors. Two theological opponents sharing the same grandfather. Two co-religionists separated by a genetic distance older than civilization. The next question is whether that distance left a trace not in the history, but in the body. Older than civilization, but younger than what this particular genetic trace recorded. A geneticist in 2016 analyzes the mitochondrial DNA of the people of Kavarati Island, a small atoll in the Lakshadweep archipelago of the Indian Ocean, 400 kilometers off the western coast of India. They have no cultural memory of Punjab, no oral tradition connecting them to the north, no record of contact with the Sikh faith or the communities that carry it. The researcher finds, in their maternal lineage, a haplogroup subclade called R30b2, present only in Mazhabi Sikhs and Balmikis of Punjab and in no other population on Earth. The R30b2 subclade exists in the Kavarati Islanders as a founder lineage. Their maternal line traces directly to the same ancient woman whose lineage persisted in Punjab's lowest caste communities. The people who were displaced to the bottom of Punjab's social hierarchy left their genetic trace in an island 400 kilometers out to sea. A population with no memory of them, who carried their blood across the water to a place where caste could not follow. There are three things this finding reveals. The third one changes everything. The first, R30b2 is ancient. It predates the steppe arrival. It predates the caste order. It is indigenous to South Asia in the deepest sense. The second, it survived. Despite the social forces that marginalized the community carrying it, the lineage persisted in Punjab and across the ocean. The third thing, the one that changes everything, Sikhism declared all people equal before God in 1469 CE. The DNA of the community it built reveals a genetic distance between its highest and lowest castes that has not closed by a single measurable unit in the 500 years since. This is not a sentence about the failure of faith. It is a measurement. The genome recorded what happened in the bodies across 3,500 years of stratification, and what happened in the bodies across 500 years of a declared revolution, and found no difference between those two numbers in the specific column it was measuring. The aspiration is real. The genome is also real. Both are true simultaneously. The Punjabi Sikhs, who provided the backbone of the Khalsa armies, who died in the same battles as the Jat warriors beside them, carry haplogroup HM69 at the highest frequency of any community in Punjab. That haplogroup predates agriculture. It predates the Indus Valley Civilization. It predates the steppe migrations by thousands of years. The men who were first, who were here, before the cities, before the wheat, before the chariots, were the same men who swept the floors of the temples built by the men who arrived after them. Guru Nanak saw this division. He named it. He built an institution to dissolve it. The institution has persisted for 500 years. The genetic record shows the division persisting alongside it, unaltered, unclosed, running underneath the scripture like a river under a road. The R30b2 subclade is in the bodies of Punjabi Sikhs in Punjab today, and it is asking a question that the faith has been answering theologically for 5 centuries without closing the biological distance by a single base pair. What is the relationship between a spiritual declaration and a genome? That question has no resolution, but where we go next is where it has its full weight. In 1947, a border was drawn that did not follow base pairs. August 1947. The Radcliffe Line is drawn through Punjab in 36 days by a British lawyer who had never visited India. 14 million people move. 1 million die. Sikh families who had lived in Lahore for generations cross east. Muslim families who had lived in Amritsar for generations cross west. The genome of Punjab is physically divided by a line drawn in a London office. And yet, the data said the exact opposite of what the division implied. Genetic studies of Pakistani Punjabi populations, including a 2024 study from the University of Health Sciences Lahore, led by Allah Raka and Atif Adnan in collaboration with geneticist Chuan Chao Wang, show that Muslim communities with Jat ancestry in Pakistan carry strikingly similar haplogroup profiles to Sikh Jats in India. R1AZ93 dominant, high steppe ancestry, the same IVC foundation layer underneath. Religion, the boundary, the partition enforced with catastrophic human cost, is genetically invisible. The genome of a Muslim Jat from Lahore and a Sikh Jat from Amritsar are closer to each other than either is to the Dalit Sikh living in their own city. The line that divided Punjab in 1947 was drawn according to religion. The genome does not recognize it. The boundary the genome recognizes between steppe-descended and pre-steppe populations is 3,500 years old, and it runs not along the Radcliffe Line. It runs through the middle of every community on both sides of it. The partition was a catastrophe measured in millions. What the genetic data reveals is a quieter catastrophe underneath it. The communities that were separated in 1947, Sikh and Muslim, Indian and Pakistani, were genetically more similar than many communities that were not separated. The border severed people of identical ancestry. It left intact the deeper division between the steppe-descended and the ancient pre-steppe population on both sides undisturbed. The microsatellite study of Northwest Punjabi communities from Guru Nanak Dev University noted explicitly that all Punjabi populations, across religious and caste lines, cluster together when placed on a global genetic map, sharing higher affinity with Central Asian populations than with most of their geographic neighbors. The refugees who crossed in both directions in 1947 were carrying the same archive. What they lost was not distinction. What they lost was place. The genetic stratification of Punjab survived the partition. What the partition added was a new layer of displacement on top of 500 years of existing stratification. And there is one community for whom both histories, the ancient genetic displacement and the modern political one, arrived simultaneously in 1947. A community that carried the oldest genetic signal in Punjab and was displaced furthest from the place that signal came from. That community and what their genome is asking is where this episode ends. The place that signal came from, the ground they were furthest from, is a burial you may be standing near right now without knowing it. The Rakhigarhi woman is in the ground near Hisar, Haryana. She has been there for 4,500 years. She yielded her genome after 100 attempts to extract it. She carries no steppe ancestry. She is the Indus Valley cline made molecular, the Iranian farmer-related signal, and the ancient South Asian hunter-gatherer in a proportion that Vagish, Narasimhan, and David Reich and their co-authors described in the 2019 science paper as the single largest ancestral component in every living person of South Asian descent. The steppe migration, the caste hierarchy, the faith, the partition, the diaspora, all of it, every event in this episode, is downstream of one woman in the ground of Haryana, 150 kilometers from the Pakistan border, unnamed, her civilization still unread. What the genome ultimately records is not division. It records arrival. Everyone arrived. The steppe men arrived 3,500 years ago. The IVC people arrived from somewhere before them. The hunter-gatherers, the HM69 carriers, arrived before anyone. Arrival is the condition of existing in Punjab. The only people who were not arrivals were the ones who came before the record begins. And they are in the ground unnamed, waiting to be sequenced. If you are of Punjabi descent, this is in your body right now, not the idea of it, the molecules. Your mitochondrial DNA carries a 40,000-year-old South Asian maternal lineage that no migration, no invasion, no conversion, and no border has displaced. Your paternal line carries either the steppe arrival, the IVC foundation, or the ancient hunter-gatherer presence. The genome inside you is a stratigraphic record of every arrival, every survival, and every cost. It does not simplify. It does not resolve. It only carries. If this episode changed the way you see this history, subscribe. The next genome we examine rewrites another story you think you know. And leave a comment. What is the one thing from this episode you cannot stop thinking about? I read them, everyone. Guru Nanak stood before his people in 1469 CE and declared that the divisions between them were not written by God. He was correct. They were written approximately 3,500 years earlier on the Eurasian steppe by a migration that did not know his name. And they have been waiting in the genome for someone with the tools to read them ever since.